Welcome to the 25th episode of the Illegally Used Hands to the Face Football Podcast. How you doing, Jake?
Doing great, Hayden. How are you?
Awesome. Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh yeah.
I'm liking it. We're on the up and coming. I like where
Mhm.
we're going. Uh, Urban Meyer was my second coach when we did our coaches list for who we liked the most as new head coaches, and Meyer was my second one. So from that perspective, I guess that's kind of a good place to start because that changes a little bit of everything around that organization.
Yeah. I'm not as high on him as you were. I think I had him around 6 or 7 in my rankings. I know I had him low. Uh but yeah, I do have faith. He's a very boomer bust head coach for me, which I don't think is a term that gets thrown around that much with staff members, but
Well, I mean, jeez, yeah, no, that is not a term that is thrown around with staff members nearly at all. Would you like to lead us into what you thought of the Jaguars last season?
yeah, they played their best football in September.
No doubt about
and
it.
and that they winning one game out of the 16 game season, going 1-15. There's not really much to talk about that isn't positive. uh I mean, they had some good plays, uh some decent highlight plays in their games, kept a lot of games close too towards the end, but just a lot of the games were just ugly.
Yeah, getting scorched by Chicago isn't necessarily something that you like to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting absolutely beat up by a team that doesn't usually score too many points. Ah, um, yeah, I'll get into some of the things I have to say. Uh, Lots of my things are kind of like in-game oriented type things. So I mean, the fact that they went in week one and had their kid at running back Robinson starting. I'm blanking James Robinson. Sorry, starting from week one, that was really crazy to me. I couldn't believe that. And there's even more stuff to do with how strange the run game was for them last season in the stats department. Really, I thought the defensive backs, basically in all the games I went back and looked at, were really like the main issue, and they definitely went through and addressed the defensive back position heavily in a bunch of different ways. DJ Chark is absolutely amazing,
Yes.
extremely underrated. We need we need him to hopefully have Trevor Lawrence start coming in and being really consistent immediately for this team, so that people can know, the world can know how good DJ Chark is. And in the first game of the season, Indianapolis did what happened basically all season and somehow still lost, even though other teams took this to their advantage, which is basically just go as quick of a passing game as you possibly can to work
Hmm.
these weak defensive backs, because besides CJ Henderson, they were literally getting worked all the time. The other issues on defense really came down to like uh, basically kind of interior defensive line play. They only really had one guy that was on the interior that did much of anything. And really, in terms of statistics, they didn't get much production out of the D line anywhere. But I do think that had to do with a lot of teams going quick passing game against them, just because they didn't even think, even they thought their receivers could break away from defensive backs quickly, not even have to have longer developing routes to get open. And that seemed to be what worked for them, the other teams on the offensive side of the ball. Somehow they still pulled it out week one, but um, yeah, the rest of the season, that definitely felt like it was continuously working against them. I think Josh Lambo's still really good. It's just that he really we need some healthy guys, because going through five kickers last season is really
Yes.
difficult. Um, the really like pulling Gardner Minshew mid-season was basically completely giving up on the team. I didn't feel like there was any real reason to do that. You're not looking at Mike Glennon or Jake Luton to do much of anything. Jake's his first name, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't think either of those guys were like, oh, geez, well now we're going to be so much better throwing these guys into the mix. They downgraded majorly there. They wanted to lose games at that point. Um, their lack of running back talent is shown by the fact that sometimes they were putting Laviska Shenault into the backfield at the running back position when they really didn't need to. Um, One of the worst players on their team, I'll say this, that started basically all year was Andrew Wingard. He got worked every play at the safety position. That was atrocious. He was one of the worst defenders on the team in terms of like plays that were just allowed by him, and it really just, I mean, there's some, I feel like when I was looking at their stats after, it was like it made his stats look kind of good because it was like he was targeted seemingly so often that he just eventually had to have pass deflections, tackles, and stuff like that. But really, they needed an upgrade at the safety position. They went out and found it. Um, yeah. Then I think there's only a few more things. Joe Schober is just becoming even more of an underrated, even more underrated than he was before because now he's in Jacksonville. And last season, uh, it just seemed like teams were able to just spread the ball or spread the team out so that they could get them in heavy defensive back sets and just go to work against them. And even then, run it inside, run it really in the interior so that you had to work that kind of weak interior defensive line, or run it really string a run outside to get outside of those good edge defenders that they had and really get out to those corners and DBs that weren't very good covering or tackling. So, I mean, I think those are kind of the two real weak spots for them when I just looked at them looking back at their games this season.
Yeah, Wingard for I when I went back and watched some of the games, every time there was a big play, you just saw his flowing blonde locks like 3 yards behind the guy that was about to score, and it's just why is this guy on the field? J-
It's very bad, but luckily they grabbed a few receivers to, or sorry, receivers. I'm just looking down and seeing receivers' names, safeties to help that position.
hmm
It was not good. Um, you got anything else or stats you want to cover real quick?
Uh, yeah, I when I looked at it, the place that I've got their stats from, I think it was Pro Football Reference, had them ranked as the 31st offense and the 31st defense. So they weren't the worst in either category.
Yeah, I
I
think I think
for
one
what
of them
stat
was
was worth.
actually 30th. The other was
Oh,
31st, but I think one of them was 30.
I
But I mean
maybe that
that's
was offense.
that's freaking atrocious anyways. So that doesn't much matter.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't wait to figure out the teams that were actually the worst. You got
hmm
more stuff?
Oh yeah. Uh, just like mentioning DJ Chark, their wide receiving core as a whole, I thought was pretty decent last season when they had someone like Gardner Minshew under center that could get the ball to them. It just there's no way that those guys are going to look good when Jake Luton or Mike Glennon's back there. It's impossible. But DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, all those guys, they looked great when they did have opportunities to make plays.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I got three 600-yard receivers, and none of them had over 12 starts. And Chark, Chenault, and Cole. But Cole is
hmm
actually a free agent right now, so that's kind of interesting. But I do like Chark and Chenault still. I mean, obviously, I think Chark is the superstar guy. Um,
Yeah.
here's a weird stat in the rushing department. The only two players to surpass 150 rushing yards for this team on the season were James Robinson and Gardner Minshew. Robinson went over 1,000, but Gardner Minshew just got above 150. I mean, there was no production from an RB2 at all on this team. Um, Glennon had 5 starts, Lutton had 3, and Minshew had 8. It's just so weird. I can't believe they did that.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous. And Keelan Cole isn't back on the team, but he was the most successful guy in the return game for them, just based on statistics, he didn't get most of the kick returns or even all of the punt returns. But when he was in the games, he had the highest average for returns in the kick return department and in the punt return department for them. So if they're not going to look to get him back, they should probably be looking for a new guy to try to return kicks for them.
They already have a new guy.
Who are you calling that?
Agnew.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking. I don't know why. He's like such a weird piece to try to remember everything he does, because he literally is a little bit of everything. And I do have him written down later. I just kind of forgot about him. And honestly, even though he's a really fun player, if he really had more than maybe. He could swing maybe like one game this season. Like if he got like a kick return or a punt return touchdown in a game, that could swing one game. But I don't know how often he's going to be making an impact for them. I don't. You think?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to judge how much of a game changer he was for Detroit, because Detroit's Detroit, and they'll do pretty much anything they can to stifle momentum. So, I mean, the dude is a playmaker. When the ball gets in his hands, he does something special with it, makes highlights with it. I don't know.
I just still like the idea that what Urban Meyer went to the general manager and said, give me one of those receivers from give me those two receivers from Detroit. They were like, yeah, okay, we got you. And then it's like, all right, we got him, coach, we got him. You got him? Really? You got both of them? Yeah, we got them both. Agnew and and Jones. What about Galladay? I was talking about Galladay and Jones. No, we didn't get him. We didn't think he was any good.
No, sorry, coach.
Oh, jeez. Man, that was tough. Then the last few stats I have are that Schobert led the team with 3 picks, led the team with 2 forced fumbles, led the team in tackles, and also led the team in tackles for loss. So, I mean, yeah, he's no doubt he's good. This team basically got no sack production at all. There was only one guy with more than 2.5 sacks, and he only got to 5.5, so it really wasn't much better. Miles Jack is also still like he's not Joe Schobert level, just dominating, but he's very good still. And then just talking about some guys that missed games. Miles Jack missed 2 games. That's not too bad. C.J. Henderson missed half the year though. Josh Allen also missed half the year, and K'Lavon Chaisson, don't think he was hurt, but they started him in 3 games and he played all 16. I don't.
Doesn't make any sense.
No, I know. I don't know who they would rather put on the field than him, but okay. Use your first round pick on him, a guy I really like. And then Josh Allen is getting injured, so that sucks too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Urban Meyer can actually put the correct guys on the field for this team.
Mm-hmm.
Want to talk about some free agents?
Yes.
You here, I'll let you lead into this one. Tell me which ones you like, which ones you don't like, or whatever, as long as you still have your list pulled up there.
Well, the ones that I like are Agnew and Marvin Jones, just adding more to that receiving core that was already great. And Shaquille Griffin. Most of the other guys I don't have much to complain. They're adding a lot of safety depth with Rayshon Jenkins and Rudy Ford. But I mean, Carlos Hyde signing, I know that they had to get someone in there at running back, but then just the Carlos Hyde signing looks worse because of what they did in the draft. And I know what you told me after the draft when I first mentioned the ETN pick to you. It's like, oh, Carlos Hyde's he's gonna be phased out of that offense by week 6.
He completely will be. I have no doubt of it. He's literally only there to. He got, you know why he got signed? He got signed because they were like, okay, we do need a second running back. But like it wasn't like we need a second running back that's going to stay here for a long time. It's just like, we look at our roster, free agency has started, let's get a second running back. They get him, but then they're like, oh, okay, well, Etienne's still on the board here when we get our pick. And Harris is gone now. So it's like, okay, the top 2 running backs are really good. Then there's a drop-off point there that I believe that most teams saw. But I think that they saw that and were like, okay, we can't pass up on ETN here because he will be a great second RB, and I think Carlos Hyde will get phased out fairly quickly. But the other thing here with their I like basically all their signings. Two other ones that I mentioned are C.J. Beathard and Philip Dorsett. I don't think it's a bad idea to have Beathard be in the quarterback room because I don't really know how the quarterback room is fluctuating now, but I'd rather have him be the backup than either of the other two guys that got starts this year or Minshew because he's not as polarizing. He's not gonna change much of anything if he comes onto the field.
Mm-hmm. If Lawrence underperforms or something within his first couple of starts, the fans are going to be clamoring for Minshew to come back just because of bias and everything of, oh, well, what have you done for me recently? And, oh, Minshew won us that one game. I remember that one win.
I don't know how quickly they would be clamoring. I'm just saying that if Beathard is the backup QB, there's no chance of it. I'd say there's only like a 5% chance if Minshew's the backup, and Lawrence lost like 8 straight games. But no, there's zero chance if Beathard is. And then the other thing is they needed safety help, but holy cow, they screwed up here. They did not need to pay Rayshon Jenkins as much as they did. I can't imagine that was his market value. He's making like. It's either a 4 or a 5-year deal. I don't even if it's a 5-year deal, it's still bad. But it's $35 million for him, and it's like, I don't think anybody else was gonna offer him nearly that much money.
Mm-hmm. They're just damaging the safety market as a whole by paying Rayshon Jenkins that amount.
However, having Shaquille Griffin opposite C.J. Henderson is a gigantic improvement for them, and I love that. Also here, they had one trade that they made that I also really liked. Talked about that weak interior defensive line. They traded for Malcolm Brown, so I really like that, and they didn't have to give up much for him at all. I think it was either a 5th or a 6th round pick, which was really good. And then just 4 players that I noted that aren't on the team, but some of them actually are just still free agents. Keelan Cole, Mike Glennon, Chris Conley, and Tyler Eifert.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them are too big of a deal, especially with Keelan Cole being hopefully replaced by Agnew.
Yeah, and Tyler Eifert, they just need to get rid of him. So, yeah, it all makes sense. Yeah.
So, what do you think of their draft picks? Because I think their draft was absolutely tremendous. It was amazing.
Yes, they had a very, very good draft.
These are like all guys I like. Here, give me your thoughts on all of them first. Then I'll go after you.
Trevor Lawrence, you and I, he was both in our top 3s. He wasn't 1 for either of us, but he is like all around the consensus 1 aside from us. He has the highest floor out of any quarterback. If they did not make the pick, everyone would be laughing at them. So they did what they were supposed to do. ETN, you and I both agreed that he was the best running back in the draft, but him and Najee were very close. He's a great receiver out of the backfield, does everything well, and they keep that Clemson connection there. Tyson Campbell is a very athletic cornerback from Georgia that you and I both liked a lot. There's a theme with almost every single one of these draft picks. You and I were very high on them. Just adding more depth to that secondary that they rebuilt. Walker Little was a highly ranked offensive lineman for us. Adding to that offensive line, they franchise tagged one of their tackles and extended the other. They are a backup tackle. They extended him because their offensive line last year, like majority starts, was Jawan Taylor, Andrew Norwell, Cam Robinson, Brandon Linder, and AJ Cann. But you can replace one of those guys, maybe kick Walker Little to the inside, replacing AJ Cann, and then at some point move him to tackle. Andre Sisco was one of your favorite safeties. I think he was just on the outside looking into my top 10. But he's really, really good. Great playmaker. Again, adding to that secondary, they knew what they had to rebuild. J2 Fele, my number 1 interior defensive lineman. That guy is an athletic beast. He goes against the quarterback. He can have 70-yard pick sixes. He does it all. So just again, they knew what they had to address, and they did a fantastic job of getting great value with their picks when they addressed them. Uh, Jordan Smith out of University of uh,
Alabama, Birmingham.
yeah, Alabama Birmingham. I had the college there. I just couldn't remember it. He was great too. I liked what I saw of his tape. He wasn't in my top 10, but these day three guys usually aren't. Uh, Luke Farrell's a very good tight end from Ohio State. I watched his film for our tight end episode. Uh, I liked what I saw, good value for the pick. And then Jalen Camp was the one guy that they drafted that I did not watch any film on going into the draft. Wide receiver out of Georgia Tech, just adding more depth to a position, creating competition. It's a great flyer to take for a 6th round pick. I absolutely love their draft.
Okay, so now I'll go through what I have to say. Um, we're both fine with Trevor Lawrence. Honestly, I just feel weird about him. I don't know why. There's not like any reason to feel weird about him. I just kind of feel weird. I mean, he's still my number 3 quarterback, and I still think he'll be good, but something just doesn't feel right with him. And that's basically just where I'm sitting on with him now. But um, I don't know why. Something feels funny with him. I still think he'll be plenty good, and he'll be way better than any quarterback they've had recently. So I mean, that's definitely a good start. And then they picked Travis Etienne, who's my favorite running back in the draft. Um, his balance is absolutely insane, and we've talked about him before. Then with Tyson Campbell, I mean, he's a tight coverage corner with that it's a turnover machine, and he's gonna add a great strength to that outside run defense that I was talking about before with those plays where they would try to string them to the outside to get out to those weak corners. I mean, I could even see him playing in the slot because he tackles extremely well. And this defense, just with all the moves they made, looks a heck of a lot better. Like, they filled in every single need they needed. And then Walker Little, not a guy that I'm terribly familiar with, just because I got to be honest, I didn't look at anything about him. But I mean, talk about positional needs. I mean, grabbing an offensive lineman here. I was kind of thinking tackle, but now that you reiterate it that Cam Robinson was there, I was thinking he would be opposite Jawan Taylor. But yeah, it's probably more likely that somebody will get moved inside. Don't know really who that is because I'm not really too familiar with the sizes of these players or much of their strengths or weaknesses. But yeah, AJ Can just probably isn't a name that I mean that's not a name that I could say
He's
much
the odd
about.
man out of that group.
That's
Just
that's what it feels like. And then they go Andre Cisco, who I think he was either my number 2 or my number 3 safety, and he doesn't get picked until the 3rd or 4th round. And I'm like, yes, amazing pick. He's another turnover machine. You want to talk about something that Jacksonville needs? Grab Cisco, Campbell. Yes, they're getting not only like good players on the defensive side of the ball, they're getting guys that'll force turnovers, which is huge in the league. Then they go Jay Tufele, who I can't remember how highly I had him ranked, but you had him as number 1, and I mean he was high for me. I think he was top 3 for me as well. So they go Campbell. Sorry, they go Etienne, who's number 1 at the position for me. They go Lawrence, who like is undoubtedly talented. They go Campbell, who wasn't high for me, but it's an extremely deep corner class. So it's not like I'm gonna say, oh, geez, that was a bad pick because it was still a really good pick. Walker Little helps him on the O-line. Cisco was a top 3 safety for me. Tufele, I think, was definitely minimum a top 5 defensive lineman for me. He may have been top 3. I mean, I went back and watched him again. And, I mean, it's insane value for a 4th-round pick. There's no way I thought he would be there still. And he's going to team up with Dwayne Smoot on the inside and Malcolm Brown now. So now they actually have a little bit of an interior presence besides just Dwayne Smoot because he was literally the only one on the interior of the defensive line last season making much of any noise at all. And then to top it all off, I say, how many guys did I say so far? They've grabbed 1, 2, 3, 4 guys already that I have top 3 at a position, and they grabbed a 5th. You probably don't even remember this, but Jordan Smith was my number 3 edge player.
He was?
Yes. So then they get him, and they don't even really need much of edge talent. But I'm just like, dude, I agree. That guy's so talented now. We're in the 5th round. Go grab him. Luke Farrell's not a guy I was too familiar with. I checked him out before we started talking today, though. And, I mean, he seems like kind of a modern-day tight end. He seems like he fits most of the things that you would want to do nowadays. So they needed somebody besides O'Shaughnessy since Eifert left. Just because I feel like O'Shaughnessy hasn't necessarily been on the field too often. Jalen Camp, I wasn't too impressed with him. I mean, but he's running routes in Georgia Tech's offense, so I don't know how crazy of a receiver you can look at, look as a receiver in this. And you may not have even known this, but undrafted free agent, they got Dylan Moses too.
And really?
Yes. And he was like number 5 for me at linebacker, and he has injury concerns. But geez, I mean, not even drafted. Like, yes, pick him up.
Yeah.
And then for wideouts, they grabbed 2 guys named Tim Jones and Josh Imatarharbihib. I mean, that name is just
Josh Imodabebe.
Okay, you got it, but I mean, no, I mean neither of those 2 guys were very impressive either, but to be honest, they were more impressive than Jalen Camp, so I mentioned their names. And the only other guys they had in undrafted free agents really couldn't find much information on. There was a guy named Kenny Randall who looked like he went to a really small school, but I couldn't find like anything about much of the other guys that they got as undrafted free agents. So don't blame me if they become really good and I didn't even mention them because there wasn't anything to find on them. But basically, I'm just getting back to the point of like, holy crap, they basically went through the draft and picked all these guys that I like. And in the first, and like honestly, like if you just look at like the first 5 rounds, I think my least favorite pick of all of them is like Trevor Lawrence, just because I think some of the other QBs have more upside. And when you say that, that's insane. I think their draft was absolutely amazing. And yeah, I'm just really excited about this team, on top of the fact that the past 2 years, their first-round picks have been used on my favorite player in the first round the past 2 years, in Caleb Chason and Josh Allen. So, I mean, franchise and Madden anytime soon, I got dibs on the Jags.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job.
I mean, I love it. I can't like reiterate this enough. This draft was absolutely tremendous for them. And when I got to actually putting together the list for today, I was like, "Geez, they did so well." And this only like makes me think that even higher of Urban Meyer, because they really, not only did they pick these amazing players, but they got them at positions of need. Also, Jordan Smith, even though I had him as an edge, he isn't too small, so he could even be another guy where I'm pretty sure they're a 3-4 scheme if I remember how it was playing out correctly. But I guess actually Urban Meyer could change that, so I don't really know. But even if like he could play end in a 3-4 still, which is kind of like, I'm talking interior D-line, and I don't think he would get worked too badly, so that could even give them another guy from that list of the other 3 that I'd say they really needed. They got 2 new safeties, Rayshon Jenkins, Andre Sisco, which were positions in need, and they needed a slot corner and another corner opposite CJ Henderson, and they go and get the kid from Georgia, Tyson Campbell, to potentially play slot, and they got Shaquille Griffin to play outside corner. I mean, they filled their needs extremely well, and I think their offense wasn't too bad, minus the quarterback position. Grabbed the quarterback, and the only other position that I would say needed a little more depth, maybe O-line, maybe a tight end, and a running back, like just depth-wise, they grabbed one for all 3 of those positions in the draft. I think they killed it. I'm sorry, I'm just babbling on and on, but I absolutely love what they did.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I completely agree, dude. Urban Meyer must definitely watch this podcast because he knew the guys to get.
The only thing I'll say is that I think I did this last year when I was making my own record prediction videos. I think I talked up the Raiders, like the one you talked about was like the Raiders video, is I talked them up a ton, and then I didn't give them a good record prediction. I still think this is going to take a little development, and that's what I'll say before I'll get to the record prediction. But I mean, I absolutely love what they did in the draft still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like this is gonna be like a breakup right now with all the Jags fans watching. We're just talking it up. Oh yeah, you're great, and now it's just here comes the record prediction.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Here, you lead us in. I'll just let you go through the entire thing first. The only thing I actually want to add, just in case you don't have this yet, is that the over-under, and I want to do this for every team, the over-under for their team wins is 6.5. So I want you to pick one way or the other, but also I want you, like, if you don't feel too strongly, I have to say I don't feel too strongly either way for that 6.5 win mark, then you could say that too, but I do want you to pick over or under.
Okay, so do you want me to just run through all their opponents and what I think's gonna happen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so starting with the division, I think the Colts are gonna sweep them. They're gonna lose 2 games to the Colts. I think they're gonna lose 2 games to Tennessee. They're gonna win both their games against Houston. And then moving on to the rest of their home opponents that they have. Buffalo, they're going to lose to Buffalo. Miami, they're going to lose to Miami. Arizona, they're going to beat Arizona because I think Urban Meyer's going to outcoach Cliff Kingsbury in that game. Atlanta, I didn't designate when the home games and away games start and end on this, so I'm trying to count right now.
You still got the Falcons, Broncos, and Niners for home games.
All right, so I think they're going to lose to Atlanta. I think they're going to lose to the 49ers, and they're going to beat the Broncos.
Okay.
And then
away games now.
Away games,
minus
they're going
the
to
divisional ones.
Yeah, minus the divisional ones. Yeah, I covered them. New England, they're going to lose to New England. They're going to beat the Jets. They're going to lose to the Rams. They're going to lose to Seattle. And that Cincinnati game, if they don't make that game a primetime game, I don't know what the NFL is doing.
That should be an early season primetime game. I would be excited to watch that. Give me that as like the week 2 Thursday night game. I would be really excited to watch that.
Mm-hmm. But I wrote toss-up for that, but since I have to pick, I wrote a loss for that.
Okay, so what did that put your number at?
5 and 12.
5 and 12. Okay, so you're gonna say under because you're actually two games below the swing. Okay, I'll tell you my outlook's slightly better. So I got this. I got games that I will straight up tell you I think they're gonna win, or straight up tell you I think they're gonna lose. Then there's games that are in the middle that I just have toss-up games. So toss-up games, I think this is kind of how I did it before last year too, is that I think there's games that are kind of too close to pick, but you would generally just say that you find the number of toss-up games you have and then say, they'll win about half. So based off that, win versus the Texans, I think they'll win the home game against the Texans. The home game against the Colts, I think they'll win. The home game against the Titans, I think they'll lose. Bills at home, lose. Dolphins, lose at home. Cardinals, I think, is a toss-up. 49ers, I think, is a loss. Broncos, I think, is a toss-up. Falcons, I think, is a toss-up. Bengals, I think, is a toss-up. This is where the road games begin. Every game from now on is a road game. Texans, I think they'll win. Colts, I think they'll lose. Rams, I think they'll lose. Patriots, I think they'll lose. Jets, win. Seahawks, toss-up. And Titans, loss. So if you do the math for what I just said, it actually comes out to be, and this was before I looked up their record number, I had I think 4 straight-up wins, and then I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight-up losses. So that's 12 games, and that leaves 5 that I think are toss-up games. And I said give them half, and guess what half is? 2.5. So that would be 6.5 wins, which is exactly what Vegas has them at. So, with that said, the deciding piece of this was that I looked at the toss-up games and I looked at where they're happening. 3 of the toss-up games are happening at home. 2 of the toss-up games are on the road. So I'm going to give the advantage to the home team, and I'm going to say 3-2 for those toss-up games. Don't know which ones it'll be, but 3-2 for those games. And that puts them at a 7-10 record. So I am barely taking the over on this one for the 6.5 wins. And like I said, I'm not going to be a gambling man on something that's that close.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I get that.
Are you strongly taking the under for this team?
No, I'm not strongly taking the under because I flat out said wins and losses for most of them, and then I had the Cincinnati game as a toss up because I think that Cincinnati game is going to be the closest out of all of them. But yeah, there are a lot of toss up games. The Denver game that can switch between a win and a loss if Denver gets Aaron Rodgers. So,
Oh, well, yeah, that's a loss immediately if that happens. Oh my gosh.
their win loss total for Vegas might go to 5.5 at that point.
You see, the Packers are such scumbags though that like I'm just sitting here like, dude, I half think like even if Aaron Rodgers has he's not coming back no matter what, they're just gonna hold him and make him retire because they haven't helped him at receiver ever. So I mean, if they're not gonna treat him well as their quarterback, why would they treat him well when he wants to leave? Like I just really haven't. I don't know. The Broncos are definitely the team that like would seem like they're like the only team left that really doesn't seem to have like a future plan at quarterback, even though they may want to say it's Drew Lock. So it's like if you don't have a future plan, just go out and grab the guy who's the best in the game at the position right now. I'm only saying that because he's the MVP, obviously. We could say it's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, whoever you want to say. I mean, even Deshaun Watson, geez, watching that game because I watched that Jacksonville versus Houston game earlier, and I mean, I was sitting there like, oh my gosh, he's literally doing it all by himself. Somebody help this man. And of course, the Texans still beat the Jags, but gosh, it's terrible. I mean, there was like 2 plays where people helped him out, and the rest of it was just him like trying to figure it out himself. But yeah, no, I mean they're the only team that seemingly has like no future, and that's why I'd say like Rodgers, if he gets traded, like there's like the prime spot. But I mean, is there anywhere else that you would even consider at this point would want him?
No.
Like I mean, we could run through all the teams right now, but I think Oakland,
I don't think Jags,
not Oakland, Las Vegas, but like not Jacksonville. I know not Jacksonville, but like. Just talking about Aaron Rodgers here, like there's such limited places. It would be really tough to find him a landing spot because of teams just already basically having a guy or changing to a new guy this offseason and not being able to move on before you've even started with him. Yeah, it would be tough. So we're on Jacksonville up and coming. Where do we see this team in 3 years?
3 years? I could see them as consistent playoff contenders in 3 years. Maybe biting for a Super Bowl. But just to play it safe, I could see them consistently making the playoffs in 3 years. Once Trevor Lawrence establishes himself and that defense becomes a force to be reckoned with that I know they can be, especially if Urban Meyer keeps drafting late round gems like he was this draft.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd say if I had to make a bet, I'd say they're like a divisional round team in 3 years, not quite a championship team. They could really shock me this season, though. I mean, with all the guys they drafted, they do have the talent where they could be like surprisingly good this season and actually win all those toss-up games. And then be like 9-8 or even steal a game that I listed them as a loss for, just playing a team that's like crappier than we expect. I mean, if they got to 10 wins, I wouldn't be shocked. My prediction's going to stay at 7, but like they've got the talent and the way they built the roster, just extremely impressive. Like I don't want to discount it at all. I absolutely love what they did. But the one thing I'll say about the Bengals game, since that's the one game that you picked out to really say you don't know who's going to win it. Just I can't really remember who the Bengals went with early. Just most of the draft. I mean, not early because I know they went Chase first pick. Just talking about positional needs. If the Jaguars are filling their positional needs and the Bengals are choosing best player available as opposed to filling the actual spots that they should be filling that are needy on their team, then I'm going to take the Jaguars in that game, and I'm going to take the Jaguars 3 years out over the Bengals 3 years out. Even though I probably like Joe Burrow more than I like Trevor Lawrence, if they're not building the team properly, it doesn't much matter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Trevor Lawrence fell into a great situation with how that front office and coaching staff has now been established. Well, not established because they just got put in there like he did, but how they're establishing themselves of, yeah, we're going to come in here, we're going to rebuild what was terrible, and then even build upon that even more in the draft by taking guys that are going to compete and bide for starting spots and push the established guys that we paid a bunch of money to even harder.
There's not a position on the team now that I'm like, I hate that player that's playing at that position. Mm-hmm. And that's so good to hear. I mean, if I had to pick a guy, it'd just be Rayshawn Jenkins, but like no, yeah, if they had grabbed like John Johnson the third or something, gosh.
Jeez.
Like that's the only thing that I can really complain about this offseason is that the safety they picked up was overpaid and they probably could have found a different guy that would have done better for the same amount of money.
Yeah, but having that as your only complaint is just so minuscule.
No, so good. Then next, we're going to be talking about the Jets, and the Jets are. I think the Jets are a little bit of a different story than our opinion on the Jaguars, to say the least. There were a few guys that the Jets did, but I don't think it'll be as much straight up love to the team, and I think it'll be a little bit more hatred for them. All right.
Oh man.
We all set?
Yeah, I think we could cut it here.